welcome to a brand new episode of Global Scan, a show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global developments and brings out India's foreign policy perspective towards the neighborhood and beyond. On the show today, India's message to the international community on why it decided to partially abrogate Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, India's stern retort to Pakistan after it downgraded diplomatic ties with India, and appreciation of India's position on Article 370 by the global diplomatic community. All that and more in Global Scan. I'm Munnan Bhattacharya. First up, the headlines. Restrictions eased in Jammu and Kashmir a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address to the nation on abrogation of Article 370. Schools, academic institutions and other establishments open in Samba, Katwa and Udhampur districts. India regrets retaliatory steps announced by Pakistan, says intention behind these measures is obviously to present an alarming picture to the world of our bilateral ties, and reasons cited by Pakistan are not supported by facts on the ground, urges Islamabad to review its decisions. Australia and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization renew defense agreement with focus on Pacific region, sign a new enhanced partnership agreement. Italian government wins confidence vote in the Senate on a decree targeting charities operating migrant rescue ships. Decree proposed by Salvini and his party members focuses on tightening sanctions on charity ships that seek to bring migrants rescued in the Mediterranean to Italy. As Hiroshima and Nagasaki mark the 74th anniversary of the atomic bombing, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reassures the country that Japan's mission to promote understanding of the devastating reality of atomic bombing would continue in country's new Reiwa era. First up, a big story on the global impact of India's decision to partially abrogate Article 370. Days after India revoked Article 370 of the Constitution, removing special status to Jammu and Kashmir, and has also bifurcated the state into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, Pakistan downgraded diplomatic ties with it as an attempt to present an alarming picture to the world about bilateral relations and urged Islamabad to review its decision. Prime Minister Narendra Modi explained the rationale of the Government of India's decision to partially abrogate Article 370 on Thursday, saying it will usher into good governance, peace, development and employment opportunities in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, which were held back because of Article 370, and will help combat terrorism, separatism, nepotism, discrimination and corruption. This was his message to India and the world on what necessitated the government's decision. PM assured the people of J&K that normalcy would slowly return, and the government is ensuring that current restrictions don't dampen Eid festivities. In his 40-minute long address, PM praised the people of Jammu and Kashmir for standing up to Pakistan's evil designs aimed at vitiating the atmosphere.
अनुच्छेद 370 से मुक्ति एक सच्चाई है, लेकिन सच्चाई ये भी है इस समय एहतियात के तौर पर कुछ कदम उठाने की जरूरत थी। उन कदमों के कारण जो भी परेशानी हो रही है उसका मुकाबला भी वहीं के लोग कर रहे हैं, और वो भी सहयोग देकर के कर रहे हैं। कुछ मुट्ठी भर लोग जो वहां हालात बिगाड़ना चाहते हैं, उन्हें धैर्यपूर्वक जवाब भी वहां के ही हमारे भाई बहन दे रहे हैं। हमें ये भी नहीं भूलना चाहिए कि आतंकवाद और अलगाववाद को बढ़ावा देने की पाकिस्तानी साजिशों के विरोध में जम्मू कश्मीर के ही देशभक्त लोग डट करके खड़े हुए हैं।
On the bifurcation of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh into two union territories, the Prime Minister said that the centre would consider restoration of statehood to Jammu and Kashmir if the situation so warrants. He clarified that Ladakh, however, will continue to remain a union territory.
जब धरती का स्वर्ग हमारा जम्मू कश्मीर फिर एक बार विकास की नई ऊंचाइयों को पार करके पूरे विश्व को आकर्षित करने लगेगा, नागरिकों के जीवन में ईज ऑफ लिविंग बढ़ेगी, नागरिकों को जो उनके हक का मिलना चाहिए वो बेरोक टोक मिलने लगेगा, शासन प्रशासन की सारी व्यवस्था जनहित कार्यों को तेजी से आगे बढ़ाएगी, तो मैं नहीं मानता कि केंद्र शासित प्रदेश यूनियन टेरिटरी की व्यवस्था जम्मू कश्मीर के अंदर चलाए रखने की जरूरत पड़ेगी। हां, लद्दाख में वो बनी रहेगी। भाइयों और बहनों, हम सभी चाहते हैं कि आने वाले समय में जम्मू कश्मीर विधानसभा के चुनाव हो, नई सरकार बने।
So that was Prime Minister Narendra Modi explaining the rationale of partial abrogation of Article 370 of the Constitution to India and to the international community as well. Let's take a look at what impact will this abrogation of Article 370 have. People of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh will have same rights as the rest of India once this comes into effect. Also, hurdles in development of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh will go with the partial abrogation of Article 370. There will be equitable development across the country, laws made by Parliament to benefit people of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, which wasn't the case earlier because of Article 370. Interests of minorities, workers, sanitation workers, Dalits, tribals, West Pakistan refugees will be protected now. Earlier, we saw how these were subjected to discrimination of different sorts. Employment opportunities for local youth will be created as more investment takes place because several restrictions will go, which were there as a result of Article 370. Vacant central and state government posts will be filled now. There are several posts of the government which are vacant. They will be filled going forward. Public and private sector will be encouraged to recruit, so more recruitments will happen, so local youths will be able to get jobs, and that disaffection which was troubling Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh will go. Good governance in a transparent environment is what the abrogation of Article 370 will usher in by combating corruption. Socio-economic development by building infrastructure, health and educational institutions. So, with the going of Article 370, these benefits will accrue to the people. Global prominence for products of the region. There are several products that have a lot of potential. For example, Pashmina shawls, Kawa, to name a few, they will get global prominence. Ladakh to become a major center for spiritual tourism, ecotourism, adventure tourism and solar power generation as well. So Ladakh's economy as a whole will also prosper going forward. Equitable development of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh will take place. Earlier we saw how development was lopsided and Kashmir-centric. Now there will be equitable development of the three regions, Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. So these are the benefits of abrogation of Article 370 that will now start accruing to the people. Besides that, it will also spell an end to terrorism and nepotism. Pakistan's designs of spreading separatism and terrorism will be foiled now because local youths will have more jobs. They will be employed in a beneficial manner and their families will also stand to benefit, and thus the stranglehold of terrorism will be cut down to a large extent. Stranglehold of political dynasties will also end, and there will be more leadership opportunities that will be available to the local youth. So locals will get opportunities to become public representatives. So the stranglehold of a couple of political dynasties that we saw over the decades in Kashmir is now going to end. And there is global support for India. Sri Lanka has backed India. This is Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. He tweeted, "I understand Ladakh will finally become a union territory with over 70% Buddhists. It will be the first Indian state with a Buddhist majority. The creation of Ladakh and the consequential restructuring are India's internal matters. I have visited Ladakh and it is worth a visit." So there is positive response coming to India's decision to abrogate Article 370 from India's immediate neighborhood, from Sri Lanka that is. Besides that, Maldives has also backed India. The Maldives considers the decision taken by the government of India regarding the Article 370 of the Indian Constitution as an internal matter. This has been the line that India has taken since the very beginning. We believe that it is the right of every sovereign nation to amend their laws as required. This was a statement that was put out by the Maldives Foreign Ministry. So more diplomatic support coming for India's decision to partially abrogate Article 370. Besides that, UAE, which is a member of the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries, has also backed India, which is a major shot in the arm for India. The UAE, as per a statement which has been reported widely in the media, has said that we expect that the changes would improve social justice and security and confidence of the people in the local governance and will encourage further stability and peace. This was a statement quoted in the media of the UAE ambassador to India. Precisely the point that India is trying to make, that this decision will usher in peace, development and will do away with discrimination, will give a boost to socio-economic development in the region. United States of America has cleared the air. This is extremely important. This is what U.S. Acting Assistant Secretary Alice Wells has said. He said that contrary to press reporting, the Indian government did not consult or inform the U.S. government before moving to revoke Jammu and Kashmir's special constitutional status. Because there were news reports that suggested that India had consulted the United States. Those reports have now been put to rest. That speculation has been entirely put to rest by this statement that was released by U.S. Acting Assistant Secretary Alice Wells. So there is global support for India that has come in. We showed you how. Besides that, India gave a stern retort to Pakistan after its recent decisions to downgrade diplomatic ties with India. India said that this is an internal matter of India. The recent developments pertaining to Article 370 are entirely the internal affair of India. This has been the long-standing position of India, that all matters regarding Kashmir are an internal matter of India. POK is an integral part of India, and so is Aksai Chin. The Constitution of India was, is and will always be a sovereign matter. So this is an internal matter of India. This is what India has said. Article 370 of the Constitution is a part of the Indian Constitution. 35A was a subset of 370, and these are since part of the Indian Constitution. They are very much an internal matter of India. Seeking to interfere in that jurisdiction by invoking an alarmist vision of the region will never succeed. This is the point that India made, because India said that Pakistan, by downgrading diplomatic ties and expelling the Indian High Commissioner, has sought to give an alarmist view to the world of the ties between India and Pakistan. And this is what India said on what the real intention of Pakistan is. The intention behind these measures is obviously to present an alarming picture to the world of our bilateral ties. So India hitting back hard after recent retaliatory steps were taken by Pakistan. More on the real intention, India says the reasons cited by Pakistan are not supported by facts on the ground. So facts on the ground are very much at variance with the kind of picture that Pakistan is trying to project to the international community. The MEA also said that India is committed to welfare of J&K. Recent decisions by the government and Parliament of India are driven by a commitment to extend to Jammu and Kashmir opportunities for development that were earlier denied by a temporary provision in the Constitution. So India underlining the fact that abrogation of Article 370 is extremely important, because there was discrimination that had set in earlier and there was lack of equitable socio-economic development. Its impact would also result in the removal of gender and socio-economic discrimination. India had always given some very, very hard signals to Pakistan on the trade front as well as on the diplomatic front, because of the repeated terror attacks that Pakistan has been perpetrating on Indian territory. Meanwhile, the situation in Jammu and Kashmir is peaceful. Restrictions have been eased in Jammu, Katwa and Samba districts with the opening of government and private educational institutions, shops, schools and academic institutions. Jammu and Kashmir administration has said that all necessary steps will be taken to ensure that those returning from Hajj pilgrimage don't face problems. Kashmiri pundits have welcomed the abrogation of Article 370, saying that for the first time any Prime Minister has taken such a significant decision for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They expressed hope that now they will be able to return to their homes.
पहली बार किसी को, खास तौर पे प्रधानमंत्री को सुना है कश्मीर के बारे में, जम्मू कश्मीर के बारे में इतनी डिटेल में बात कर रहे हैं वो, तो उन्होंने मुझे लगता है हर एक क्षेत्र को टच किया. डेफिनेटली एक बहुत ही पॉजिटिव डेवलपमेंट है. हम ये सोचते हैं कि जम्मू एंड कश्मीर के जो अच्छे दिन हैं वो आने वाले हैं, और हमें ये लगता है कि ख़ास तौर पे हम कश्मीरी पंडित जो बाहर रह रहे हैं, डेफिनेटली वापस कश्मीर एक बहुत ही अच्छे माहौल में वापस चले जाएंगे.
Let's now get an update from the ground there in Srinagar. Our correspondent Mark Lynn is stationed. Mark, how is the ground situation in the Kashmir Valley now? Have services been partially restored?
Well, Munmun, there is a large security blanket all over Srinagar. I came in this morning and, well, in some places I saw a heavy security blanket and in some places less so. Traffic is moving up and down. People are walking up and down. Some shops are open. I bought a bottle of water for 20 rupees, which shows that MRP is still functioning. So things look okay, but you don't know what all this is a precautionary measure. So one is not very sure. There is a thick security blanket, as one says, and perhaps people are smiling also. One doesn't know what lies underneath those smiles. People seem to have accepted what the Prime Minister said yesterday. There is hope in the air, perhaps one can say that, because these decisions have been taken in the interest of development of the state. One has to give it time for people to understand and assess and see what they've lost and what they've gained, because there is that sense of feeling amongst themselves that they may have lost something. But by and large, as you can see, life seems to be going on quite well. Of course, there are incidents where we have, as I said earlier, thick security blanket, cars are checked, lots of vehicles checked. We were also checked quite a few times. So all the precautions that are necessary in a situation like this, and they are precautionary measures, as one has already been saying.
Right, Mark. Thank you for having joined us with a ground report from Srinagar. And for more perspective in terms of how the international community is viewing Article 370's abrogation by the Union of India, we are joined by Vivek Kajju, former Secretary MEA. I welcome you, Ambassador Kajju, to Global Scan. How do you look at the way India's MEA, that is the Ministry of External Affairs, handled the situation diplomatically in the aftermath of the announcement by Home Minister Amit Shah in both Houses of Parliament that India has decided to partially abrogate Article 370, because media reports suggest that India kept the international community in the loop, in the sense that there were several envoys in Delhi who were briefed on the rationale behind India's decision, and also there were 15 members of the UNSC who were briefed from time to time over a period of time after the announcement was made, so that they better appreciate India's position.
It is normal diplomatic practice to engage the international community on issues of significance, and certainly the downgrading of Article 370 and the removal of special status of J&K falls in that category. India explained the rationale on the lines that the Prime Minister spoke yesterday, that this would assist in better governance and in economic development and a more equitable order in Jammu and Kashmir, and also would improve the situation in Ladakh in terms of the development of what is now the Union Territory of Ladakh. India also mentioned that this step would also assist in curbing cross-border terrorism, and if you recollect, one of the objectives mentioned formally in Parliament for the conversion of the erstwhile state of J&K into the Union Territory of J&K was the internal security situation on account of cross-border terrorism. All in all, the engagement seems to have gone off very well, for it stressed that whatever steps India had taken fell completely within its domestic jurisdiction, and India had every right to take that step. The Pakistani reaction has been over the top, and I do think that India stressed correctly that this reaction was meant to draw the attention of the international community to the exaggerated view that all is not well, to such an extent that it can be a dangerous situation. So India correctly said that diplomatic channels between the two countries should continue unimpeded at this level, and India was not provoked by Pakistani steps, the steps that Pakistan has taken will harm it more than help.
Ambassador Karchu, several of these countries that have come out in India's support after India announced the decisions are also part of the OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries. UAE, for instance, is a member of the OIC. Does that mean that Pakistan's stock is continuing to go down even among Islamic countries?
I think we've got to take an objective view of this situation with regard to the OIC. Though the OIC has a formal position on behalf of, because of Pakistani intervention, and this intervention has gone on for the last 3 decades on Jammu and Kashmir. I don't expect that that formal position will change. However, on the ground, in practical terms, Pakistani overtures towards the OIC will have no great impact. Certainly, the Pakistani Prime Minister has been in touch with important Islamic leaders, and some leaders have stated their formal positions, but I don't see any material change taking place in the OIC. And what is most important for India, India's bilateral ties with all Islamic countries, especially with important countries in West Asia, will continue to be as warm, as constructive and as productive as they are now.
Fair enough, but member countries of the OIC like the UAE have come out in India's support, saying that the decisions taken by India have been taken on a matter which is totally internal to the country. Now, having said that, Ambassador Karju, India is also trying to expose Pakistan's propaganda on Kashmir with the UNSC members, saying that there are several resolutions on Kashmir that Pakistan itself has not followed since the 1940s. Then what is this brouhaha about?
That's entirely correct. Actually, the fact is that Pakistan itself has changed the constitutional positions within the Pakistani system of areas under its illegal and forcible control in Jammu and Kashmir. And if it has done so, it certainly has no right to comment what India is doing within its domestic jurisdiction. Besides, the constitutional position is absolutely clear. Jammu and Kashmir is a part of the Union and it will so remain.
Absolutely, and there has been so much of centralization of power, Ambassador Karju, in POK. For instance, we know how the President of Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the Council of Ministers in Pakistan, they rule almost with an iron hand in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and contrast that to how there is decentralization of power taking place in Kashmir.
Well, I think that is the proposal that the government wishes to pursue, that power should flow downwards and go to the grassroots, and that will be beneficial in terms of governance.
Besides that, there are also reports that suggest that India's diplomatic community is also underlining what Pakistan Army had said in a recent statement. It had said that both Article 370 and 35A are just not recognized by Islamabad. If that is indeed the case, do any of these protestations by Pakistan that we are seeing now bear any legitimacy whatsoever?
The Pakistani position is riddled with contradictions, and hence it does not need to be taken seriously in terms of international law or in terms of diplomatic practice. What we have to be careful about is the action that Pakistan has taken over the last 3 decades and its continuation. That is, that Pakistan has used covert means, it has fostered cross-border terrorism, and the chances are that it will not let up in this effort. Besides, it might also think of new and innovative ways of seeking to provoke us. It will continue to act diplomatically and otherwise because of its public opinion, because within Pakistan over the decades a certain fervor has been built, a certain irrational fervor has been built up about Jammu and Kashmir, and it is the saner voices in Pakistan say that it is harming Pakistan, that it has damaged Pakistan. But the Pakistani army and those who say that, those who think that they are in charge of the Nazariya of Pakistan or Pakistan's ideology are so wedded to this negatives that they are willing to cut their nose to spite their face. It's irrational, but it's something that we have to live with. As the defense minister, our defense minister rightly said, God help anyone that has a neighbor like Pakistan.
Absolutely. Pakistan scoring self-goals repeatedly at the same time. Thank you, Ambassador Karju, for having joined us on Global Scan.
Thank you.
Well, moving on and now to other major global developments. Australia reinforced its relationship with NATO by signing a new joint partnership in a bid to work closely. The document was signed between Australian Defence Minister Linda Reynolds and NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg in Sydney early this week. Reynolds said that Australia is concerned about Iran's activities in the Strait of Hormuz and is considering a request from the US and the UK to join a global coalition to protect and secure the strait. However, it has not made any decision yet.
Yes, we did. We have had discussions about what's happening in the Middle East. I can reiterate that the Australian government remains very concerned about the increased tensions in the Straits of Hormuz, and we are considering the American request and also now the request from the United Kingdom, but we have not yet made any decision. We are looking at new areas to work together in the Indo-Pacific, so it's a reinforcement of our relationship.
NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg added that NATO is concerned about the alleged destabilizing activities of Iran in the region.
We are extremely, of course, concerned about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, and all allies are also concerned about the destabilizing activities of Iran in the region.
Italy passed a tougher law on migrant boats. The Italian government managed to win a Senate vote on a decree targeting charities operating migrant rescue ships early this week, strengthening its stand against the migrant ships arriving at its ports. Italian Interior Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini managed to win the vote by 160 in favour and 57 against. The decree proposed by Salvini and his party members focused on tightening sanctions on charity ships that seek to bring migrants rescued in the Mediterranean to Italy. The decree hikes maximum fines for ships that enter Italian waters without authorization to €1 million from a previous €50,000. It also provides for the arrest of captains who ignore orders to stay away and calls on naval authorities to seize their boats automatically. The decree had already been passed by the Italian lower house. A world free of nuclear weapons. This is what Japan called for as it observed 74th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings this week. Laying wreath at the Hiroshima Atomic Bomb Dome Memorial on 6th of August, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reassured the country that Japan's mission to promote understanding of the devastating reality of atomic bombing would continue in the country's new Riva era. The Japanese Prime Minister also assured a meaningful outcome at the Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference next year by actively engaging with other countries.
We must work to make the new era one that is both peaceful and hopeful. We will promote understanding of the devastating reality of atomic bombing while adhering to Japan's 3 nuclear principles. I am determined to work as a bridge between nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states and to lead the efforts of the international community by urgently promoting dialogue.
Shinzo Abe later reaffirmed the call at Nagasaki Peace Park as he attended the memorial ceremony on the 9th of August. The ceremony was also attended by atomic bomb survivor and activist Yoshiro Yamawaki, who pledged to continue his appeal for abandoning nuclear weapons until his death.
I will continue to appeal for abandoning nuclear weapons until I die. This is a way to honor the 2 lakh people who lost their lives in Hiroshima and Nagasaki 74 years ago, and people who've been suffering the after effects of the atomic bomb.
welcome to a brand new episode of Global Scan, a show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global developments and brings out India's foreign policy perspective towards the neighbor.
जल है तो कल है। स्वच्छ भारत अभियान का संकल्प, संरक्षित हो जल, हर घर पहुंचे नल।
जल संकट को हमने गंभीरता से लेना होगा। पानी बचाना है, हर घर को जल, इस मंत्र को लेकर के आगे बढ़ना है।
जल शक्ति समाचार सोमवार से शुक्रवार शाम 6:50 पर सिर्फ डीडी न्यूज पर।
Provides for the arrest of captains who ignore orders to stay away and calls on naval authorities to seize their boats automatically. The decree had already been passed by the Italian lower house. A world free of nuclear weapons, this is what Japan called for as it observed 74th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings this week. Laying wreath at the Hiroshima Atomic Bomb Dome Memorial on 6th of August, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reassured the country that Japan's mission to promote understanding of the devastating reality of atomic bombing would continue in the country's new Riva era. The Japanese Prime Minister also assured a meaningful outcome at the Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference next year by actively engaging with other countries.
We must work to make the new era one that is both peaceful and hopeful. We will promote understanding of the devastating reality of atomic bombing while adhering to Japan's 3 nuclear principles. I am determined to work as a bridge between nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states and to lead the efforts of the international community by urgently promoting dialogue.
Shinzo Abe later reaffirmed the call at Nagasaki Peace Park as he attended the memorial ceremony on the 9th of August. The ceremony was also attended by atomic bomb survivor and activist Yoshiro Yamawaki, who pledged to continue his appeal for abandoning nuclear weapons until his death.
I will continue to appeal for abandoning nuclear weapons until I die. This is a way to honor the 2 lakh people who lost their lives in Hiroshima and Nagasaki 74 years ago, and people who've been suffering the after effects of the atomic bomb.
Over 1 million pilgrims arrived in Mecca as the annual Hajj pilgrimage, which traces the route Prophet Muhammad took 14 centuries ago, began on Friday. According to Saudi Ministry of Hajj, majority of them are residing in Mecca while others are staying in Medina. As people from around the world are coming for the annual pilgrimage, tight security has been put in place in the holy city to ensure the safety of worshippers. The Hajj is an annual Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, which Muslims are expected to make at least once in their lifetime. According to some pilgrims, the Hajj gives them a moment to rejoice as they get to meet people from all corners of the world. As hot weather is expected to prevail during the Hajj season, the Saudi government has taken measures to keep pilgrims cool, such as spraying water in the streets and providing air conditioning in various buildings. That's it then in this edition of Global Scan. Thanks for watching.